And there's just no evidence that these gun laws would prevent these shootings.
There is at least an absence of certain proof as to the efficacy of gun ownership laws in the past.
To think that somehow gun control is, or increased gun control is the answer, in my view, that would have to be proved.
Yes, it's the old "I'm not doing anything until you can prove it" argument. The same argument favoured by climate change deniers and fathers of the baby on Maury. Happy Father's Day. And that brings us, the point is, that brings us to perhaps the most ingenious and insidious NRA tactic. Because they don't just manage to block legislation concerning guns, they've managed to block information concerning them too. For instance, one of the major funders of academic research, the Centers for Disease Control, has been hamstrung in studying how best to prevent gun violence for the last 20 years.
In 1996, the NRA successfully lobbied Congress to put this restriction into the CDC's budget. None of the funds made available may be used to advocate or promote gun control.
Now, the CDC was already banned from advocating for gun control laws, or indeed any form of legislation. But the 1996 Dickey Amendment, named after both its sponsor, J. Dickey, and after the fact it was an extremely Dickey thing to do, had a chilling effect on the CDC funding any gun research at all.
CDC funding into gun violence research has plummeted 96% since 1996 to just $100,000 of last year's $5.6 billion CDC budget.
The only other things that have dropped 96% in the last 2 decades are Lycos searches and Tickle Me Elmo-related stampedes. And it's not just the CDC struggling to collect reliable gun-related information. For decades, the NRA has successfully lobbied to prevent the ATF from having a database that is electronically searchable by name when tracing the origins of firearms. So, for instance, this is what they have to do with documents from gun shops that have gone out of business.
Workers here are left with an antiquated system to trace 350,000 guns a year, requiring them to review by hand tons of paper records and 500 million entries on microfilm. Many of the records are barely legible.
So, for example, these are records that we received as a result of Hurricane Katrina. We're to dry these out in the parking lot.
That is clearly absurd, because that does not look like a present-day record of gun ownership. It looks like the manifesto from a Spanish galleon that sank in 1610. So how the fuck has the NRA managed to accomplish all of this? Because the truth is, they're not that large an organisation. They claim they have a membership of around 5 million, but that is 3 million fewer members than Planet Fitness. And the members of Planet Fitness have almost no power. Most of them don't even have the power to actually go to Planet Fitness. And that is true. That is true. By mid-January, that place is nothing more than a storage facility for grape-coloured exercise bikes. And while the NRA does spend a lot of money lobbying, they are frequently outspent by even the NAR, or National Association of Realtors, a group of wily bastards who've somehow convinced all of us we need to live indoors like a bunch of nerds. But the real power of the NRA is in its members, who are highly motivated and can be mobilised quickly. Just look at the website of the NRA's Political Action Committee. You will find alerts for practically every piece of legislation around the country. And not just write your congressman alerts. Alerts like, the following bills are scheduled to be heard on June 14th at 9 a.m. in room 126 of the state capitol. Because they know their members often show up. And one of the reasons they're able to rally their base so effectively is they have an appealingly simple message.
It's all about a single issue. There's no 4-point plan that they have to defend, and I would point out they only have to say no. So they're not for anything, they're against something. A single issue, one word, no.
Exactly. It's a lot easier to drum up support when you're just flatly against something. There is a reason that TLC insisted upon no scrubs and not the implementation of a national registry of potential scrubs, aka busters, that would screen for scrub-like tendencies or affiliations with known scrubs. They knew no scrubs is a lot catchier. And the